everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I'm reviewing the new Sennelier Woodless pastel pencils. I have a lot to say about these after playing around with them for the last week or so, and I hope that you find this helpful. If you do like my video, then please do hit subscribe. Also check out all of my other playlists here. I have a ton of videos all about soft pastel, ranging from this type of product review to time-lapse videos, and even lots of real-time videos where you can try out some of these products along with me. And then over on my Patreon channel, you'll find my full library of real-time tutorials and lots more. But let's jump in and see what these pencils have to offer. To begin with, I'll quickly show you the unboxing of these pencils. Now, if you know my work, you'll know that I predominantly use the soft pastel sticks, and really pencils are more of a support act in my work. I probably use the soft pastel sticks for at least 80% of my pieces. So for that reason, I knew that the full set of these pencils probably wouldn't get used, and so I only bought the set of 12 to try them out. The bigger sets do come with a much better selection of colours rather than just the basic colour spectrum we get here, but I knew that I could test out the pencils just the same with this set of 12. They do come in a beautiful presentation box. I love the way they've packaged these, and there is an extra empty tray below this, as you can also buy a set of 24. And then the set of 48, which I believe comes in a deeper box. But at first glance, this is a very attractive set. And as expected with just a set of 12, the colour choice is limited. From the first feel of them, I knew that the pencils feel quite hard. So I selected a sanded paper to do my swatches on. I used Fisher 400 here, and it grabbed the pigment really well, just to show you the colours really nicely, because as you'll see in a minute, there are some issues on other popular pastel papers, but adding the swatches to a rough surface felt so nice, and the colours look incredibly strong and vibrant. I also quickly tested whether it was possible to layer up the pigment and mix it smoothly into another colour, and it was. This was key for what I was planning to demo in this review. But before I get to that, let's try out a few experiments and see what's possible with these pencils. I decided for this to use a piece of pastel mat, as that's probably one of the most popular pastel papers. It's known for being pretty good at accepting pastel pencil where some other papers might struggle. And I normally would choose this paper if I've got a subject where I know I've got to create lots of fine detail using the pastel pencils, and I'll often choose this paper for that very reason. I'm going to quickly demo some comparisons here with a few of the brands that I tend to use a lot. As I said, I use pastel pencil in a pretty limited way, and so I cherry pick a few colours from across the different brands after years of doing tests and experiments to find my favourite version of different colours that I need. I could make a whole video about that actually, so let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in. The first comparison here though is with a Faber-Castell Pitt pencil. These are known for being towards the harder end of the scale because pastel pencils come in a range of hard to soft. Faber-Castell is an example of a harder brand, with Caran d'Ache and Carbothello being at the soft end of the scale. But even though the Pitt pencils are hard, I still get a pretty good solid mark from this red colour. But then I was surprised to try the Sennelier and find that it was incredibly scratchy on the pastel mat, and it just didn't produce the same strength of colour here. Next was the black that I tend to use from Bruinzeel, a Dutch brand. After trying lots of blacks, this is my favourite black pencil and I use it all the time. But the same thing here happened. The black Sennelier wasn't as strong and it really felt scratchy on the surface. And although it doesn't show up on camera very well, it's also just nowhere near as dark as the Brunswick. I did the same with white, and I use a General's chalk pencil. This is my favourite white and it works fantastically well on pastel mat. The white Sennelier actually did a decent job, but it still just feels a bit of a struggle to get the marks to go on smoothly. And then the same thing with a yellow colour, and actually the lighter colours showed up decently well, but in general they just felt really scratchy going onto the pastel matte surface, which is a bit weird. Next I put some pigment down using a soft stick from Unison, as this is normally how I would be using the pencils, over the top of other pigment. So let's just quickly see how all of these apply over the top of that. Although the colours showed up okay, scratchy is the word I keep coming back to. What's weird is the fact that Sennelier have made such a hard pencil when in fact their soft pastel sticks are a little bit too soft for my liking. Because just like with the pencils, the pastel sticks also come in a range from a bit harder through to the very soft, with the likes of Rembrandt being at the harder end of the scale and brands like Sennelier or Schminke being at the very soft end of the scale. Now I do like quite a soft pastel stick, but I prefer somewhere in the middle, a bit more like Unison or Terry Ludwig, to name just a couple. So here is a quick comparison of these pencils to Sennelier's own brand of soft stick. And the difference is crazy. I kind of expected this company to make a pencil that was soft like their sticks are, but they've gone completely the other end of the spectrum. Now that might be unexpected, but it's not necessarily terrible. I think you've just got to understand the limitations of the product and use the support that suits it best. So given what I had learned about these pencils, I decided for my little demo to make use of a rougher sanded paper. I wanted the paper, like with my initial swatches, to grab the pigment really well and to not feel scratchy like it did on pastel matte. So to give myself the best chance of enjoying using these, I went with Fisher 400 paper. And because I only bought the 12 colours, I immediately thought of this little lovebird photo reference that I took ages ago. So this is just 5 by 7 inches, a very tiny little piece just for the purposes of this demo. And I used the pencils to create a bit of a dark background as well. So I used absolutely no soft pastel sticks for a change and relied completely on this set of 12 colours, of which I ended up using 10 of the 12 colours. And because I'm using the rough sanded surface, I actually found that the pencils performed pretty well here. They allowed me to blend smoothly a really dark and kind of out of focus background, which is what I would use often. And then with the more vibrant colours and how they layered up, I was actually pretty impressed with how they behaved on this paper. I think it would have been a very different story had I used pastel matte, because it really was quite a surprise how terribly they apply to that paper. But given the right paper,
And I think the right paper in this case is one of the sanded surfaces. They really do go on very nicely. So this was the perfect little experiment to use for this set of 12 because as you can see, it is a full spectrum on this little bird. And I was able to layer up the colours and mix some of the in-between tones that I needed to create on the bird. But there's so much vibrance on this little creature and it really suited this particular set of colours. That's often the case if you buy a smaller set of colours in any medium. You'll often get these sort of more vibrant colours to begin with and not so many of the in-between or more subtle tints and shades. And at this point, I had made quite a few of the pencils a bit blunt, and I decided it would be a good time to experiment with how on earth to sharpen these pencils. Now, I don't actually own any pencil sharpeners because I never ever use them. As I said, I use pastel pencil quite a small amount in my work, so I don't have a lot of pencils that constantly need sharpened. And so my weapon of choice is usually a blade of some sort. In this case, it's just a big chunky box cutter blade, and I often use that actually to sharpen my other pencils. So you can see here that I'm just gradually bringing that back down to a point. But what I hadn't considered actually with the fact that there's no wooden casing on this pencil is that it's all pigment that I'm shaving off here. So you can see the dust flying. And I kind of realised as I was doing this that I was losing a reasonable amount of pigment from the pencil. So I would advise not to make big, long, pointed tips on the pencils. Go for more of a shorter point, and that way you'll not waste quite as much of the pigment as you sharpen it. But they certainly do need sharpened if you're using a sanded or rougher paper because that wears things down a lot more quickly. But on the whole, I really enjoyed this. I don't think I was expecting to enjoy using these because I don't usually make use of the pastel pencils on their own with any of the pastel pencil brands. And I really enjoy using the soft pastel sticks. So it was interesting for me to limit myself to just the pencils. And I think as long as you're using a rougher paper, these actually work really nicely. I mean, just look at the vibrant colours on the bird's head, especially. The yellows through to the pink are particularly lovely. So just a few finishing touches on this. I didn't bother so much with the branch at the bottom. I think I had learned everything that I needed to know about these. And on the whole, it was a positive experience. So let's have a quick look, a quick rundown of some of the pros and cons that I have discovered. Firstly, the price comparison isn't bad between other brands. There are some that are cheaper and there are some that are more expensive. Do have a good look around at what offers are in your area or online in your area, as I was finding quite a range of different prices with some of them being on special offer at the minute. So do shop around, and these prices are just what I found at the time of making this video. The thing that I will say is that you get a lot of pigment for your money as there's no wood casing. It's entirely pigment, so it should last you longer. The full set of 48 also gives you a very nice selection of colours. The fact that they layer and mix together well means that you can generate a lot of different colours from their biggest set. If you use a surface that suits them, the colours actually look fantastic. They're vibrant and pretty strong when layered up, light on top of dark included. And they claim to have very good light fastness. Now, I say claim because this is an area to be careful with in soft pastel. as there's not really any regulated, standardized system for all of the brands to be compared against each other. But on the whole, I believe that Sennelier have quite accurate light fast information, and they do show which of their colours in the soft pastel sticks are fugitive, so I'd be inclined to believe that their pencils will perform decently. So some of the cons, of course, the most obvious one is that they are surprisingly hard and therefore a little bit scratchy. The weirdest thing of all is that they don't work well on pastel mat, which is a favourite paper for so many artists. What I also found is when you sharpen them, you're actually losing a lot of the pigment. If you're using them to do large areas of background, it would actually be quite clever to maybe use the side of the tip rather than the tip itself and kind of sharpen the pencil on the paper as you go.
So although I found many problems with these pencils, I've got to admit, I actually enjoyed using them for this little lovebird. And I think the key is in using them on the surface that suits them best. So if you use nothing but pastel matte paper, perhaps these won't be for you. But I can already think of some artists that I know who would probably love these, so I think there is a market for them. But if you've bought these and you're struggling to get to grips with them, get yourself a little piece of sanded paper, something like the Fisher 400 or UArt paper would also work nicely, and come and join me and create this little lovebird demo. I had a lot of fun with this, and I'm going to release the full demo to my patrons over on Patreon, as they've said they would love to see it. The link to that will be in the description below. But I hope that you enjoyed my review here on YouTube. Please do hit subscribe. And just to quickly mention, I don't always get sent these products for free from the companies. Sometimes I do, but quite often I just go and buy the product myself. So if you'd like to support me, I'll add some of my affiliate links in the description below, where your art materials shopping can actually help me to keep making these videos. I never watch other review videos, so what you get here is my honest and uninfluenced opinion of everything that I review, and I really enjoy the chance to experiment and share that with you. But let me know what you think in the comments. Have you tried these? If so, what did you think? I'll be so interested to see if others have the same experience as I did. But thanks very much for watching, and until next time, happy pasteling.